7 signs you're trapped between the dark and light dimensions. There are moments in life when everything feels both divine and distorted. You wake up with a sense of mission, a whisper deep inside telling you that you're meant for more than this body, more than this job, more than this version of reality. But at the same time, there's a heaviness pressing down on your chest, a shadow that you can't locate but you can feel. You're pulled in 2 directions, one toward light, clarity and expansion, the other toward confusion, stagnation, and emotional chaos. And if you're here, listening to this, then I need to tell you something that most people will never understand. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're not cursed. You're simply trapped between dimensions, caught in a spiritual liminal space few ever recognize, but many silently suffer in. This trap isn't physical, it's vibrational. And once you're in it, nothing feels fully real anymore. You can't go back to who you were, but you're not yet fully who you're meant to be. You start seeing behind the curtain of reality, noticing synchronicities, feeling the presence of energies you can't explain, having dreams so vivid they feel more real than waking life. But instead of full awakening, you feel fragmented. One day, you're high on spiritual insight. The next, you're in a fog, unable to move. And this back and forth becomes your new normal. It's disorienting, exhausting, and quietly terrifying.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first sign you're trapped between the dark and light dimensions is this exact sensation, being half awake in 2 worlds. You begin to notice that certain people, places, and even conversations carry a strange energetic weight. You sense when someone is lying, even if their words are perfect. You feel drained after spending time in certain rooms, even if nothing bad happened. But here's the twist: you're not fully trusted by the light yet, and the darkness hasn't fully claimed you either. You're in a spiritual no man's land, and that's what makes it so dangerous. You're exposed, you're open, and every energy around you knows it, but it goes deeper. The second sign is emotional duality that makes no sense. You'll feel intense gratitude and despair in the same hour. You'll cry without knowing why. You'll laugh and then immediately question the meaning of joy. This isn't mental illness. It's dimensional interference. Your spirit is decoding multiple frequencies at once. The human mind was never designed to process light and shadow simultaneously, but your soul was. And that's what's happening. You're being stretched, not punished, but purified. Still, the duality can tear at your identity if you don't understand what's happening. You'll start asking yourself, am I going crazy? But insanity is not what this is. This is awakening under pressure. And not everyone survives it intact. The third sign is energetic fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. You could sleep for 10 hours and still wake up feeling like you've run spiritual marathons in your dreams. You're not just tired. You're transmitting and receiving signals from dimensions that are not visible to the naked eye. Your dream life becomes more intense. You start waking up at 3:33 am or 4:44 am, not because of coincidence, but because your frequency is syncing with spiritual cycles. You may even feel as though you're doing work in your dreams, fighting, healing, journeying, teaching, and you are. You're being used as a bridge between dimensions, often without conscious permission. This is not something to fear, but it is something to acknowledge. Because if you don't ground yourself, this fatigue becomes a portal for darker energies to attach through weakness. The fourth sign is your relationships start to dissolve or shift without explanation. Friends stop calling. Lovers become distant. Family members seem unable to see you anymore. You're not imagining it. You're changing frequencies. And when you're trapped between dimensions, your vibration becomes unstable. You're not who you used to be, but you're not yet who you're becoming. So you start to repel people who are anchored in one polarity. Those rooted in the light may sense your shadow work and pull away. Those carrying more darkness may be drawn to you, seeing you as either a threat or a key. Either way, the old connections break. This is painful, but it's necessary, because in this state, anyone who isn't aligned becomes dangerous. Even well-meaning people can unknowingly be conduits for spiritual interference. Now here's where it gets even more intense. The fifth sign is time begins to distort. You start losing track of time, not just in a scattered way, but in a deeply surreal, almost glitch and matrix kind of way. Hours feel like minutes. Minutes feel like hours. Sometimes you'll look at the clock and feel like you've jumped timelines. Because you have. You're slipping through dimensional layers. Time is not linear in these states. And when you're caught between light and dark, your spirit moves faster than your body can comprehend. This creates a dissonance. You'll feel rushed, even when you're not busy. You'll feel stuck, even when you're moving. Because your soul is trying to escape the trap, but your body is still anchored to density. Until you learn to bring them into harmony, this distortion will continue. The sixth sign is craving isolation while fearing it at the same time. You'll want to disappear from the world. You'll long for silence, solitude, and space. But when you get it, something strange happens, fear creeps in. Not the fear of being alone, but the fear of what you might encounter in that silence. Because in the quiet, you begin to hear the whispers. You begin to feel presences. You begin to confront your own darkness. And that's exactly why silence is terrifying. Because it's not empty. It's full of truth. This is the part where many turn back. They return to noise, distraction, routine. But if you can hold your ground in the solitude, you will begin to hear the messages from both sides. And that is where your power begins to awaken. The seventh and final sign is you begin to question everything, even yourself. Your beliefs, your path, your identity, your mission. Nothing feels solid anymore. You wonder if you've been tricked, if you're delusional, if any of this is even real. But this is the final gate. The test of spiritual sovereignty. Because when you're trapped between dimensions, you can no longer rely on external validation. You must become your own compass, your own oracle, your own sanctuary. And that is terrifying. But it's also holy. Because once you learn to trust yourself in the dark, no force, light, or shadow can ever control you again. So now I ask you, are you truly awakening, or are you being initiated into a war between frequencies that few can even name? Walking the razor's edge, why you feel split between worlds and how to navigate the in-between. Once you realize you're trapped between the dark and light dimensions, everything ordinary begins to feel unreal. The places you used to find comfort no longer comfort you. The people you once turned to for advice can't seem to grasp what you're going through. You're walking through life like a ghost in your own timeline, half present, half elsewhere. And here's the terrifying beauty of it, you're exactly where your soul intended you to be. But nobody tells you how hard it is to exist in the in-between. Nobody tells you how lonely it feels to be too awake for the old world, but not fully anchored the new one. You're like a frequency trying to stabilize mid-transmission, flickering between realms, unsure if you're ascending or unraveling. This is the razor's edge, and walking it demands a kind of spiritual maturity most never tap into. You can't fake your way through this space. You can't bypass it with affirmations or spiritual cliches. The in-between dimension exposes every false identity you've ever worn. It rips away the masks, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because you cannot carry illusion into the higher dimensions. And yet, you can't fully surrender to the light if you're still resisting your own shadows. So you're pulled violently at times between two opposing forces, both demanding your loyalty. That's why your nervous system feels fried. That's why your emotions feel like a storm you can't outrun. You are not broken, you are being recalibrated. This recalibration often shows up as what mystics call the void, the spiritual numbness. You're not depressed, but you're not excited either. You're not asleep, but you're not fully here. You're in the waiting room of your next evolution, and there's no clock on the wall. You try to meditate, and it feels hollow. You try to journal, and the words don't come. You start to question whether your gifts have left you, but they haven't. They're simply being rebooted. You're shedding the old frequency, which means everything built on that frequency must dissolve. That includes your routines, your passions, your connections, and yes, even your sense of self. So what do you do when everything familiar feels foreign? You stop resisting the collapse. You allow the breakdown, because within it is coded a breakthrough. You let yourself grieve not just people or situations, but versions of yourself that will never return. The ego will panic here. It will try to rebuild quickly. It will say, let's just go back to how things were. But you can't. The bridge behind you has burned, and the path ahead requires a new blueprint, one that only reveals itself when you become still enough to listen. That's where discernment becomes your lifeline. When you're caught between dimensions, not every voice you hear is your higher self. Some are echoes from your past. Some are residues of old programming. Some are projections from the collective unconscious. And some are entities, yes, actual entities whispering doubt, fear, and stagnation to keep you from rising. You must become a master of your inner atmosphere. You must learn to ask, whose voice is this? Is this thought expanding me or shrinking me? Is this energy mine or something I've absorbed? These questions are not just introspective, they are armor, because in the in-between, your energy is currency, and everyone seen and unseen is trying to spend it. But there's a hidden gift in this space. When you stop clinging to certainty, you begin to feel the subtle currents of your soul. You start noticing patterns in the silence. You start hearing guidance not as a booming voice, but as a quiet knowing. You begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. That's when you realize this trap between light and dark isn't a prison. It's a womb. And you are being rebirthed through pressure, through paradox, through spiritual fire. Still, the fire burns. And sometimes it feels like too much. You'll want to scream, or sleep for days, or disappear. And that's okay. You're shedding centuries of karma in one lifetime. You're collapsing timelines. You're healing wounds that didn't even begin with you. So of course your body trembles. Of course your mind questions. But you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. Presence is your sword. It's what cuts through illusion. It's what anchors you when you feel like floating off into spiritual dissociation. Because yes, that's another trap, trying to escape the in-between by going too far into the light. But the light is not the goal. Integration is. And integration means owning your light without denying your shadow. It means walking through hell with heaven in your chest. So let me ask you something that most people never dare to ask themselves. If this liminal space never ended, if you had to live the rest of your life between dimensions, could you still find peace? Could you still create? Could you still love? Or are you only willing to be whole when the universe gives you the answers you want? Because the moment you can answer yes is the moment the trap begins to dissolve. The silent war of frequencies, how to reclaim your power without choosing a side. When you're caught between the dark and light dimensions, there is a subtle war happening every moment, not outside you, but within you. It isn't loud. It doesn't look like chaos. It moves in silence. It disguises itself as indecision, procrastination, emotional numbness, or the constant urge to quit everything and start over. But this is not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that your soul is refusing to blindly align itself with either polarity. Because what most people don't realize is that enlightenment isn't about choosing the light and rejecting the dark. It's about transcending the illusion of duality itself. That's the real war. not light versus dark, but fragmentation versus wholeness. In this in-between state, you start to understand that both forces, light and dark, have their own agendas. The light wants order, purity, ascension. The dark wants liberation, chaos, descent into depth. But your soul, it wants truth. And truth often lives in neither extreme, but in the paradox between them. That's why you feel like you don't fully belong to either world. Because you were never meant to. You were meant to hold both, to bridge both, to become a living portal between them, not to be loyal to one, but to integrate the wisdom from each and rise above their war. That's why reclaiming your power in this dimensional split requires something radical, energetic neutrality. Not indifference, not apathy, but the ability to be in the presence of both light and shadow without being hijacked by either. This is one of the rarest spiritual states. It means you can listen to your fears without letting them lead. You can witness your light without becoming self-righteous. It means you can walk into a room full of chaotic energy and not lose your center. But how do you get there? How do you reclaim power when both sides are pulling you in, asking for allegiance, offering gifts with invisible contracts? It starts with radical energetic hygiene. You must become hyper-aware of where you leak. Your power doesn't just vanish, it's spent. Every moment you give your attention to drama, to fake urgency, to someone else's projection, you are spending spiritual capital. And when you're trapped between dimensions, you don't have time for energetic debt. You must protect your field like a sacred temple. That means cleansing daily not just your body, but your mind, your digital space, your emotional loops. Who are you texting that drains you? What content are you consuming that leaves you numb? What inner dialogue are you repeating that disconnects you from your center? These are not small questions. These are spiritual diagnostics. But there's another layer, one that most spiritual teachings avoid: desire. When you're between dimensions, your desires get distorted. Sometimes you'll crave things you thought you'd outgrown. Old addictions resurface. Old fantasies reappear. You might even feel tempted to sabotage your progress just to feel something again. This is not regression. This is the dark dimension testing your roots. Can you want without being ruled by the wanting? Can you observe your craving without collapsing into it? Because the truth is, you will never transcend desire by suppressing it. You transcend it by understanding its origin. Desire is often just a misdirected longing for union with the self. Every time you chase something outside your relationship, a status, a dopamine hit, because some part of you is still exiled, still waiting to be integrated. And in the in-between, those exiled parts speak louder. They don't want to be fixed. They want to be heard. So sit with them. Ask them questions. What are you afraid of? What do you need from me? What are you trying to protect me from? When you stop treating your inner chaos like an enemy, it transforms. And that's the secret the light doesn't always tell you. Sometimes, the fastest way to rise is by descending consciously, compassionately, completely. This, too, is how you reclaim power, by realizing that your shadows are not obstacles to your awakening. They are the initiation. They are the teachers the light was too afraid to introduce. And when you learn to walk with them, not as their slave, but as their equal, you unlock a level of wisdom that can't be taught. It can only be earned. So let me ask you something most people never dare to answer honestly. What part of your darkness have you been pretending is healed, just so you can feel spiritual enough to enter the light? And what would happen if you stopped pretending and just sat in it, without judgment, until it told you its real name? Because that's where your true power lives, not in perfection, not in purity, but in your willingness to be fully human while remembering you are also infinite. The exit frequency: how to break free from the trap and anchor your soul in one reality. By now, You understand something most people will never even begin to comprehend, that this trap between the dark and light dimensions isn't just spiritual, it's existential. It's not some metaphorical struggle. It's a real energetic condition that millions are silently living through without language for what's happening to them. But the question that matters now is not, why am I here? You already know that. You're here because your soul is evolving beyond binaries. The real question, the one that cuts through all illusions, is this: how do I get out? The answer is not by escaping. It's by anchoring. You don't exit this trap by running from it. You exit by choosing a frequency so consciously, so consistently, that the trap can no longer hold you. Because this liminal space between dimensions feeds on one thing: your indecision. As long as you stay in a state of maybe, of kind of I'm not sure yet, the trap thrives. It feeds on that hesitation. It multiplies in your confusion. But the moment you make a choice, not just mentally, but energetically, you begin to generate a stabilizing field around you. That choice doesn't mean you reject your shadow or reject the light. It means you commit to integration. It means you stop identifying with either polarity and start identifying with the observer, the consciousness that is aware of both. This is the exit frequency. It's not bliss. It's not peace. It's clarity. And clarity is what dissolves the veil. Because once you stop reacting to every emotional spike, every energetic fluctuation, every spiritual high and crash, you stop being a puppet of the war between dimensions. You become a sovereign being, and sovereignty is a frequency the trap cannot hold. But here's the paradox: you can't fake this clarity. You can't chant your way to it. You earn it through embodiment. You earn it by practicing presence when your mind wants to flee. You earn it by choosing alignment when everything in you wants to negotiate. You earn it by living the truth you've remembered, not just knowing it. That's where most seekers get caught. They think understanding equals liberation. But understanding is only the beginning. Liberation is a practice. It's in how you speak, how you move, who you let into your field, what you tolerate, what you no longer explain. To anchor yourself in one reality, you must also become brutally honest about what needs to die. Not in a symbolic sense, but literally. What habits, what environments, what relationships, what identities no longer fit the frequency you're choosing? Because here's the thing, the universe won't do this for you. You have to cut the cords yourself. You have to look at a version of yourself and say, you served me once, but now I release you. That's not betrayal. That's evolution. And until you make those cuts, you'll stay fragmented, half in, half out, torn between timelines that were never meant to coexist. And yes, it will hurt. You'll feel like you're betraying your past self. You'll grieve versions of you that gave you comfort. But that grief is sacred. It means you're making room. It means you're choosing. And the more you choose, the easier it gets. Eventually, your energy becomes so coherent, so whole, that the trap can't locate you anymore. You become invisible to the frequencies that once fed on you. You stop being a battleground. You become a lighthouse, steady, still, sovereign. And then something miraculous happens. Reality starts to respond to you differently. People who match your frequency begin to appear. Opportunities align without force. Your body starts to heal. Your dreams become clearer. Time smooths out. And the war that once raged inside you becomes a memory, not a condition. You still feel the polarity of the world, but it no longer lives inside you. You've chosen your center. You've chosen your reality. And that choice has made you free. So the final question I ask you is the one that only your soul can answer. What frequency are you willing to live and die by, no matter who walks away, no matter what it costs, no matter how long it takes? Because that frequency is your exit key. And once you choose it with everything in you, the trap dissolves. You don't rise above it. You transcend it by becoming whole. And that's when the next chapter of your evolution truly begins.